Arise!
Welcome to this Season 9 Complete Azir Guide. I'm Zoose, and I've tried to cover everything possible, including plenty of in-game footage using details from the best players and servers. There's timestamps in the description below if you're interested in a specific section, but I would recommend watching it all as there are important tips throughout. Use this video as a reference by saving it or adding it to a playlist so you can constantly come back whenever it's convenient. If you're planning on trying Azir soon, hit that like button so I can see just how many of you are interested. Ever since the release of Azir, I found him to be one of the most rewarding champs to play. His unique playstyle requires consistent focus on the position of his soldiers, allowing for optimal damage and combos with his other abilities. This unique playstyle can take many games to feel consistent and smooth. It can sometimes feel like I'm playing two champs at once, switching between a long range poke mage with burst and a high attack speed damage overtime carry that goes in deep. With the ability to make soldiers, walls and towers, and Shurima shuffle entire enemy teams, Azir is one of the hardest champs to master, especially in a meta that isn't forgiving early on. Before we jump into the main content, let's quickly go over the abilities. His W creates soldiers which count as an auto attack and deal AoE damage to enemies within range. It also grants attack speed, which is doubled if you have 3 soldiers summoned. His Q is an AoE mid to long range skill shot which requires at least 1 soldier to be activated. It applies a 1-second slow and repositions his soldiers to the target location. His E is a dash which can only be used towards a soldier. It provides a shield and stops if it hits an enemy champ. Hitting an enemy champ also grants 1 soldier charge. His ult is a wall which damages, knocks up and displaces enemies towards the target location. His passive allows him to resurrect any fallen tower outside the enemy base. They pretty much act as normal towers except they gain 15% AP and lose 100 armor if Azir is too far away. There are a couple of different major runes to take depending on the situation. I've looked through the top pro plays and regions like Korea and EU West and tested them myself. Here are the top 4 rune pages. Electrocute is probably the most consistent rune. Great for early pressure and trades. Pick it against champs that consistently allow you to proc this rune, especially melee champs that need to be dealt with early before they become a threat later on. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter work well together for that lane sustain. Eyeball Collection and Ghost Poro are both viable. If you feel safe walking through the river, take Ghost Poro and place the Poro aggressively, preferably in the enemy jungle. Mana Flow Band helps with Azir's slight mana problem early on. It will come down to how accurate you are with your Q and W autos to make sure all your mana consumption is used for dealing damage. Last rune is Absolute Focus. Staying above 70% HP is relatively easy on Azir unless you're going against heavy poke like Xerath, so 90% of situations you'll get the extra AP from this rune. Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter synergize well with this rune, helping you stay above 70%. The next most consistent major rune is Arcane Comet. Main reason to take this rune is for poke gameplay. When you won't be able to get consistent procs of Electrocute, the long range poke of Azir makes the damage from Comet efficient. Look for Q pokes in lane whenever this is up. Since your Q applies a slow, it makes for consistent damage from Comet. Mana Flow and Absolute Focus are again the most optimal, with Scorch as the 3rd rune. The extra damage you get from your Q poke plus auto will help Azir maintain lane dominance early on. Gathering Storm is viable if there is a good chance you will have a late game, something extremely rare in this current meta. The second path is flexible. From Precision Page, you can take Legend Alacrity for additional attack speed and Coup de Grace for extra damage on low HP targets. Another popular and just as consistent rune page is the same Taste and Blood Ravenous Hunter synergy from Domination. Go with what feels best for you. If you need to pressure your advantage, go Precision. Do you need sustain? Go Domination and get that second path to maintain your HP. The third most popular major rune is Lethal Tempo. This is a potential game changer for Azir if you're able to hit a target for enough time. If you have a team heavy on CC or the enemy team has plenty of immobile or tanky champs, this rune is optimal. The attack speed steroid coupled with your soldiers' damage is insane. Triumph, Alacrity and Coup de Grace for the other 3 runes. The second path is flexible between Domination and Sorcery. The Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter combo is good for that HP sustain once again, and Mana Flow Ring and Absolute Focus combo for that extra mana and damage. You can even take Mana Ring and Transcendence. I will go over Transcendence further in builds, as Nash's Tooth plus Ludens and Zhonya's can make use of the extra CDR for potential extra damage. I wish I could definitively say which is the best rune, but it's so close. Even if you compare every pro player, the results are inconsistent. This is one of those times where it's best for you to try yourself and perhaps make the final judgment. Situation-based choices are highly recommended. The final popular major rune that is worth mentioning is Summon Aery. It's great for consistent damage. If you're close in most fights, then this can be the most optimal for damage. Since Aery has to travel, the closer you are in combat, the more Aery procs. Something to consider, but not as consistent as the other runes. Unlike Comet, it can't be dodged. This rune can be substituted into any of the Arcane Comet pages. Extremely situational runes. For more HP sustain, take Second Path Inspiration, Cookie with Cosmic Insight, Minion Dematerializer, or Stopwatch. Cut down subbed for Coup de Grace against 3 or more tanks. Of course, no matter what, every situation is unique. I've just tried to outline 99% of situation, so pick accordingly. The best and most consistent start in most matchups is Doran's Ring plus 2 health pots, HP plus mana plus AP. Everything Azir needs. Darkseal is good for a first back if extra mana is needed, although rushing your major item is priority. First major and popular buy is Nash's Tooth. It provides AP attack speed, CDR, and a percentage of your AP is converted to autos. It contains everything Azir needs to become a major threat. If you want to go Nash's first, I would advise taking Mana Flow Band, as mana can be an issue. The other major first buy is Luden's Echo. Great build path, especially Lost Chapter for the mana sustain early on. I found myself buying this item more, and specifically when I needed to poke and pressure my enemy laner. The mana lets you spam Q plus W way more than an early Stinger if you're going for the Nash's build. Here's my take on whether to get Ludens or Nash's first. If you take Electrocute or Lethal Tempo, take Nash's as your first item. I would advise taking Mana Flow Band, otherwise you'll quickly go trying to clear waves and poke your laner. If you go Arcane Comet, Ludens seems better for the poke playstyle. There are a few exceptions. If you have mobile enemies like Nid Jungle and Zed Mid for example, take Electrocute is fine for the easy proc on Zed in lane. Rushing Ludens is also fine. Mobile champs are much harder to get autos off, since they can move out of your soldier range, making attack speed useless most of the times. Hence, I would recommend early Ludens for more burst with Electrocute or Lethal Tempo. Here your Q plays a bigger role, since most of your poke damage will come from it. I want to reiterate once more, no matter what the circumstance, I've tried to cover 99% of situations, so use your best judgment for your choices, or simply follow one of these paths that sounds best for you. I've looked over not only the best solo queue players, but also pro players. Azir is in a unique state, where only experienced Azir players can make him work consistently, so choosing the right rune page and item build will come naturally with games under your belt. Sorks for 90% of situations for second buy. Movement and Magic Pen. Azir will make use of this Magic Pen every auto. Ninja Tabies for 3 to 5 AD enemy champs. Although this is rare, it may happen. Mercs might be necessary against big AP threats like LeBlanc, Syndra or Aery, maybe even Xerath. Combined with their burst and CC, they have potential to one-shot you. I'll quickly mention Berserker Graves since this has been picked up a few times. If you find yourself needing attack speed, these are an option. Azir already has a lot of built-in attack speed, plus Nash's Tooth, and the potential to have 3 soldiers attack speed steroid, so you'll have more than enough attack speed in my opinion. Morellos can be purchased either after Nash's or Ludens, or after you buy both. A cost-effective item at the moment with a useful passive against healing or any life generation enemy champs, especially tanks. The Magic Pen synergizes really well with his soldiers' autos. The next items are situational. Zhonya's against enemy teams that have potential to burst you. If you want to make plays, this item is perfect for that as well. Going for a Shurima shuffle into the enemy team will require you to go into a vulnerable position, so hit Zhonya's right after that combo and wait for your team to back you up. Great to counter burst in general, especially AD threats like Zed and Talon. Stopwatch should be bought earlier if you feel it would save you during an important time of the game. Rabadon's Deathcap is the best choice if you're ahead and want to snowball, or you don't have any major threats for Zhonya's to be a priority. With a completed Deathcap, your soldiers will hit like a truck. You've truly reached Ascension with this item, dealing disgusting damage from your long range, and potential to wipe out any squishies in your way. Void Staff right after Morello's is viable if the enemy starts stacking MR, but generally you want to build this last, since the two previous items hold more importance. Sometimes I like to get a Dark Seal early and find myself ahead, so Mejais is a great option. Great item to snowball, a Zhonya's early would help keep your stacks in case you find yourself out of position in fights. Banshees might be viable if you have some CC threat that can pick you out. This item can literally save your game, so pick it against threats like Pyke, Syndra, Elise, Blitz, Thresh that have potential to pick you out. Liandries can be viable against extra tanky enemy team comps. Your soldiers apply this passive every time you auto. Rylai's is another option. Although your Q already has a slow, you can proc Rylai's with a soldier auto, helping you kite against certain enemy champs, preferably against champs that use speed to catch you, not dashes or blinks. For summoner spells, I would highly recommend if you are D4 and below to take Ignite. An aggressive spell, Ignite, gives you the lane pressure you need to pick up kills on your laner and even the enemy jungler in those early 2v2 skirmishes. Defensive summoners are great, but in a meta where early game seems to make or break Azir, it's important you take initiative to snowball your lead. I cannot count the amount of missed kills because I decided to take a defensive summoner. Of course, once you're in an elo where it is much more consistent in terms of skills and game knowledge, you'll need to take defensive summoners accordingly. The first main and popular defensive summoner is Heal. Heals you for a small amount, which is great for surviving when you go in deep as Azir. The movement speed and the potential to heal another teammate makes it slightly better than Barrier. Barrier is another great defensive summoner, usually taken against high burst champs like Syndra. It's able to absorb slightly more damage than Heal and is resistant to grievous wounds, especially from Ignite early on. Exhaust is great against champs that burst up close like Zed, Talon, Yasuo, but ever since the nerfs it's been less favorable in most situations. Cleanse against long range CC that has potential to follow up with lots of damage. Lissandre CC with a dangerous jungler, Syndra, Aery, and gank threats like Elise and Sejuani. Since you have plenty long range and dash and peel with your ult, only take cleanse if the enemy mid and jung has serious CC combo threat, since I feel heal and barrier are still priority. Before I go over some general Azir tips that will help you gain an advantage, here are some quick guidelines to help you pick the best setup. If the enemies are immobile, tanky or short range, lethal tempo plus Nashors into Morello's is a great damage over time build. If enemies are mobile, squishy, long range, Arcane Comet plus Ludens Rush will deal great burst damage in a quick poke. If you're up against melee, mid, short range in lane, you want to apply pressure consistently, as well as have the mana to do it, Electrocute plus Ludens Rush is best. If teamfights are fast and full of squishies, go burst and look for those sick Azir plays, aiming to sweep as many with your ult. If teamfights are slow paced with constant kiting and positioning, go for a damage over time build. I will go over further details in matchups, but this will give you a general guideline in most situations that helps you decide what's best. Now let's go over some general tips to gain a small advantage. When you ult a champ, try to save at least one soldier, so then you can place right on top of the enemy as he's pushed away, or at least try to push them onto existing soldiers. Careful backing with your soldiers up since they will reveal you. Try to get out of range so your soldiers deactivate. Use your towers for sieging. If your team has to backtrack after a poor engage or has taken heavy poke, the safety of your towers means enemies to risk taking tower shots in order to engage on your team. Use your soldiers early to gain some vision in the river and brushes. It will save you a ward which you will need for laning. To speed up the time it takes to get to lane, W the furthest point of the nexus, E and then Q. Don't Q if you need the mana early on. You can get some extra damage by attacking champions outside the soldier range by attacking a minion. For maximum range dashes, after you E, you want to Q right before you reach a soldier. There are plenty of wall dashes you can perform, some take more practice than others. Best tip is to get right along the wall so you can get a longer distance from your W that you wouldn't usually get. Let's go over some of Azir's strengths. He has strong wave clear with a well positioned W. Use this against champs that struggle early by pushing them into tower. You can force champs to think twice before roaming since you will push their way faster into tower and cause them to miss CS. Also great for defending towers against enemy sieges, perfect for stalling to get to late game. Azir does objectives extremely fast with 3 soldiers up. Dragons, Herald, and Barons should be high priority choices when deciding to take objectives. He has excellent potential to stop enemies from doing these objectives with long range poking, and since they'll be grouped in a tight area, it's a perfect chance to go for that sick Azir play by sweeping enemies with your ult. You have safe range in lane, making Azir a pretty consistent, safe first pick. Use this range while you have the advantage by constantly poking and harassing your laner as they attempt to go for CS. Placing a soldier in range where the enemy must walk through a soldier to reach CS, forcing them to take damage if they want that sweet gold. Abuse your range and poke while you have the chance. There are a handful of champs that will have the upper hand at level 6, but if you poke them enough or made them miss enough CS, you should have the upper hand in the fight. Unlike other poke mages, Azir has a sick long range dash. By positioning close to walls, you can be creative in your escapes, so practice this to enhance your Azir laning, especially around the river. Azir is a strong late game champ. If games get off to a bad start, if you're able to just prolong the game, no matter how many deaths you have potential to make a comeback play with your ult. Apart from being nerfed quite a few times, let's go over his weaknesses. Your E is your only way of escape in lane. It has a long CD, so use it wisely. If it's on cooldown, don't be too aggressive. Your E stops when it hits an enemy champ, so if you get ganked from behind, it's best to go through river and dash over the wall, or perform an EQ around the enemy towards your tower. Your ult requires you to get close if you want to hit multiple enemies, making it vulnerable when he dashes in. Make sure you have backup, enough damage or Zhonyas at this point. Mobile champs have the potential to dodge most of your damage. I'll go over specifics in matchups, but this is something you need to watch out for. Falling too far behind early on against champs that can dive you makes him a risky pick in certain enemy team comps. It's important that you master the laning phase in order to avoid falling behind in harder matchups. Just like with all mages, he builds almost no defensive items, with the exception of Zhonya's, maybe Banshees, so he's a squishy champ vulnerable to hard engage. Your experience in positioning and teamfights will decide how well you do. Some games your team will require you to engage, other games they will rely on your damage, so staying safe and outputting damage will be your main focus. Azir is a dynamic champ, so with enough games you'll be able to play accordingly to the type of ally and enemy champs around you. A simple combo for a quick efficient trade in lane is W next to champs, auto, Q, auto. This is perfect to proc your Electrocute. Against tougher matchups, it won't be that easy to place your soldier right next to them. Wall dashes, as mentioned before, simply walk up to a wall, W over, and you'll gain some extra distance that you wouldn't usually get, and simply E to dash over the wall for that extra length. You can also double wall dash. Some areas of the map allow you to dash over 2 walls, or even the same wall twice. Place a W over your wall, E right before you hit your soldier, Q to the target location you want to go. There are plenty of different places on the map, and depending on whether you're trying to escape or catch someone, you can use this to your advantage. The Shurima Shuffle or the Azirsec. W, walk away to put enemies' guards down and create a false sense of security. Or use an existing soldier that's already up. E to that soldier, Q behind them, and ult them towards your team. And then you want to place another W on top of that. You can add a flash before your ult if you didn't cover enough distance with your Q. Now this isn't really much of a combo, but it's still a small little play technique you can use. The tower bait. Bait an enemy to start a fight in an area where a tower has fallen. Ult them, and while they're knocked up, resurrect the tower. There is a small cast time for casting a tower, so while they are knocked up, you want to cast it. Then kite around the wall and stall them to get more tower shots. Depending on the enemy champ, play it accordingly. Obviously someone like Zed may have enough dashes to get out, but a mobile champs may struggle depending on how you place your wall. Shurima Shuffle Return, an extended part to the Shurima Shuffle. W, walk away. E, right before you hit your soldier. Q back to your location and spam R. You will send them to where you started, a much safer combo but extremely hard to pull off. Make sure you spam R right after Q, that's when I found it worked best. Careful not to hit the target, otherwise you won't return. This is better later on when your ult is a little bit longer, with a few extra soldiers. Matchups can be categorized into 3 categories: easy, medium, and hard. So instead of trying to memorize every champ matchup, use this guideline to decide for yourself. Easy matchups include lanes you outrange and barely take any poke or harass. A medium lane is generally an even matchup and depends mostly on how you play it out. You have about the same range, and trades are mostly won on dodging plus hitting skill shots. Hard lanes usually involve champs with long range and CC, as well as high mobility champs that have potential to one-shot you, specifically at level 6. Now let's go over specific matchups, starting with the easier champs. Anivia. You outpush her early on, so make sure to push her under tower and miss CS. You have low kill potential while she has her egg passive. You can still get some nice poke off. Very hard to lose this lane. When she's 6, she'll match your push, and this will likely become a farm lane. Annie. She has low range, so you can abuse her with your poke, plus pushing her under tower forces her to only use her spells to farm. Watch her stun and level 6 when she goes for an all-in with flash. You can take barrier or heal to counter the burst, or take ignite if you want to look for an early kill on her. Galio. Like most melees, just poke from afar. Watch for his flash plus W taunt or his dash. He's a little tanky with his AP shield. Most Galios look for roams at level 6, so make sure to constantly push waves in, ward up, and ping your team if you predict a Galio ult. Heimerdinger. Although rarely seen mid, you can just destroy his turrets with your long range soldiers. Once his turrets are killed off, he will struggle to push waves. Karthus. You outrange him with your poke, and you can just push waves just as fast as him. You have potential to cancel his ult with yours. You can also shield yourself with E, tanking some of his ult damage. Kayle. Rarely seen mid, just poke her down before you decide to go all in. When she becomes invulnerable, push her away with your ult, then dash back in with your E to finish her off. Lux. You can choose to play safe and farm against Lux, push hard and force her to use her spells to clear. If she decides to play super safe, there's not much you can do. She even has ult, which you can use just to push the waves. Twisted Fate. Your poke will win this lane. TFs generally like to push as soon as possible. He doesn't have kill potential on you if you poke from afar, but level 6 he will look for ganks with his ult, so constantly push him into tower. Zilean. Push him in early, poke him hard and look for kills. Just avoid his second bomb. You can always use your E to tank some of his bomb damage. Hard to kill after he's 6 with his ult up. Zoe. Push her in early and look for poke. Zoe always has some kill potential with her E, her sleep, so you can take cleanse in this matchup if you want. She always returns to the same place after her ult, which means you can consistently hit your Q on her or prepare to all in her. Now let's go over medium lanes. Aurelion Soul. Good Aurelion Souls will push hard early on, so try to counter his push. He has low kill potential on you since you can just dash out of his main abilities. His main threat will be roaming bot or top, so do your best to ward and ping your team. Poke whenever is possible and don't be afraid to go for a kill if he's low enough. Brand. Rarely seen mid. Try to push hard. If he uses his spells to wave clear, go for poke. Watch out for his entire combo at level 6. He has enough damage to one-shot you. Staying behind minions means he can't hit his Q stun on you, but staying too close means he can get his W and his E splash as well as an ult bounce. Cassiopeia. You outrange her. Watch for her W, it will stop you from dashing. If you hit Q, don't trade. Just dash back and your shield can take the poison damage. Corki. Although rarely seen mid, poke him when possible. Just don't get too close without your Q. He can just W in and you won't have the damage to outtrade him. Watch out when he has his package. He will likely go for an all-in or use it to roam. He has pretty decent poke at level 6. Watch out for his big rocket, which is every third ultimate shot. Diana. Classic melee matchup early. Push and poke early. Try to dodge as many of her Qs. She's a threat at level 6. If she hits a Q and decides to dash in, stay around your tower and simply ult her backwards. Fizz. Although he has potential to one-shot you at level 6, you should harass him constantly before he hits level 3 and specifically level 6. Push him into his tower, force him to miss CS. Take barrier to absorb his all-in damage. If he ults you, you can always dash back. Once he's on top of you, use your ult to push him away or into your tower. Karma. She only has one spell that can outrange you, specifically her ult Q. Push her in early and she can't use Q to harass you. Her mobility and her shield make it harder to get decent damage when she has mana to spam. Cassidon. Poke him early on, go for hard trades when his Q magic shield is down. At level 6 he's harder to deal with and you'll have to play extremely passive. You can still farm safe and push waves. Katarina. Poke her and push her into tower before 6. Always have your ult up to interrupt her ultimate. She can dodge your Qs with her blinks, so trade when her blinks are down or when she can't safely blink. Lissandra. You outrange her. Don't stand behind minions from her Q splash damage. Her major threat comes from her E, but since it's telegraphed on the ground, you can just dash backwards to safety. Malzahar. You can outshove him before level 4, and try to get rid of his shield before you go for Q trades. Level 6 he's hard to kill and his flash R makes him a major threat when it's followed up by a gank. Play safe when his flash is up. Nico. Don't stand behind minions or she'll get a fast paced E snare. Go for hard trades when her snare is down. Her level 6 is a hard engaged threat. Pushing works well since she'll be forced to use abilities to counter push. Orianna. You have long range but she'll occasionally get some poke damage from her QW poke. You have the slight advantage since you can threaten to dash in at any time. Ryze. Very hard for Ryze to get close to you if you play it safe. Focus on pushing lane and poking him when you have the chance. Only all in him when he's low since he will likely win extended trades. Syndra. Her E is her major threat. It's a stun and has long range. Go for hard trades when it's down. If you get hit by her stun after level 6, she'll most likely all in you. Take barrier to absorb her all in damage and play safe most of the laning phase. Talia. Although rarely played mid at the moment, simply use minions to tank her Q. Fight around her circles since she can only proc it once. Push her in and force her to counter your push or miss CS. Talon. You can poke him pretty safely, just don't get hit by his return W. He's not a major threat to you if you take barrier or exhaust. His main potential is roaming, so ward up and ping teammates when he's missing. If he ever ults you, you can dash out or use your ult to push him away. Seeker's Arm Guard Rush is a great choice. Veigar. You can play aggressively before he hits level 6. Push and poke as much as possible. Stay behind minions so he can't land Qs on you. His W is his major threat, since he will follow up with E, Q and his ult damage. He can't really do much to you if you decide to play safe, as you can dash away whenever he channels his W. You can take barrier or heal if you want, or buy Zhonyas to negate his ult damage later on. Vel'Koz. Even though his Q has long range, it's easy to dodge. His ult has potential to kill you, so always stay above 70% HP. Classic skill shot lane, whoever pokes and dodges more wins. Heal or barrier is a solid choice. Victor. Although mostly played top, Victor has a decent poke mobility once he's upgraded his Q and E. You can always dash out of his stun. Trade when his Q shield is down. Whoever pokes and dodges more will win this lane, but both champs can decide to play safe and farm it out. Yasuo. Aim for a poke and push early on, but stay away from your minions as he'll use them to dash to you. Try to proc his shield with autos before you Q him. When he's level 6, stay close to your tower at all times, and if he ever ults you, just use your ult towards tower. Heal, barrier, exhaust are great summoners. Seeker's Arm Guard is a great first buy. Ziggs, one of the few champs that can outrange you. Just push waves in and dodge his Q. Go for pokes when you can, but it will most likely turn into a farm lane. Try to save your E to dash out of his ult, specifically out of the center circle. He has potential to stop your dash with his E sachet charge, although this is pretty hard. Don't dash through his W minefield. Now let's go over the harder lanes. Now obviously some of these are skill matchups, but generally these guys have the advantage on you. Aery. She must be poked whenever you have the chance. She can counter your push with her Q. At level 6, she has 3 dashes. She can dodge most of your skill shots and even dash through your wall. Make sure to stay close to full HP after level 6 by dodging her charm and Qs, otherwise she'll likely all in you. Akali. As with most melees, poke her and push early on. Don't let her get close enough to Q you. Stay far back when she's in her shroud. At level 6, stay very far back, close to your tower. You can push her away if she ult dashes you, but her second dash can go through your wall. Echo. Only real chance to win this lane is hard poke and harass before he reaches level 6. If Echo makes it to level 6 safely, without any CS loss, he has essentially won the lane. He can go for hard trades on you whenever his W is up, or choose to simply push the wave with his Q. Hard to kill him with his ult up. Aurelia, extremely hard to deal with. She's an extremely mobile when she Qs to minions. Huge threat if she stuns you. Do everything you can to avoid her stun. She can even negate your damage with a W. Play safe towards your tower and look to poke her when her stun is down. Ult her towards tower if she all-ins you. She can dash through your wall, another reason this is a very hard matchup. LeBlanc, her mobility plus CC and damage make her a challenge. Push the wave hard and force her to only use her spells on the wave. Watch out for ganks since she can simply dash in and chain you. Your E will save you in most situations, so don't use it unless you're 100% safe. Vladimir, very hard to deal with since he is a manaless champ and infinite sustain. Ignite is a good counter to him if you want to look for kills early on. Once he has Protobelt or Spellbinder or whatever his first major buy is, he has potential to one-shot you with a full combo even under tower, so play extremely safe at this point. Xerath, one of the other few champs who have longer range than you. Try your best to dodge his skill shots. Since he is slowed when he charges his Q, it's one of your only chances to get close and trade with him, but you risk taking damage yourself. Once she gets blue or mana item, just stay far back. Barrier and heal is a solid choice for summoners. If you ever manage to poke him enough, go for an all-in. His immobility will make him easy to land your combo. Zed, poke hard and aggressive before level 3. Respect his E, W and Q train combo in lane. When his shadow is down, continue being aggressive. At level 6, play passive. Go for poke if he wastes his W, just be aware he can all-in you at any time. Seekers, Stopwatch or even rushing Zhonyas is great. Barrier and Exhaust are solid choices for summoners. There's plenty of info so far in this guide about Azir's gameplay, but let's quickly go over the stages of the game. If you're winning lane, ganking bot or top is an option. You have decent mobility to get behind minions and ult them towards your team. If there's a chance to gain an objective, such as Herald or Dragon, help your team since you do plenty of consistent damage. If you find yourself in a tough situation or losing lane, you should still be able to farm safely under towers. Your mobility plus wall will allow you to defend against dives in most situations. Fights in rivers are great with your zone control using your soldiers, as well as your ult to peel you or an ally. Mid-game. Grouping is Azir's best chance to shine. With enough CC on your team, you deal insane damage if you're untouched. Sieging is great since you have great long range poke. You can always use your passive and resurrect towers if your team decides to pull out or gets engaged on. Split pushing works against some team comps. You can use your tower passive for an area of safety if enemies decide to gank you. If you have Zhonyas at this point, you have serious potential to outplay them under your tower. Even if you take down one enemy in a 1v3, you still stalled enough time and wasted enemy resources to allow your team to catch up through farm and objectives or even win fights on their own, late game. Although rare in this current meta, if Azir reaches late game, you have truly reached Ascension. You do insane poke damage, you have potential to one-shot any squishies, and if you manage to Shurima shuffle more than 2 enemies at this stage, you can literally win the game off a single play. You do Barons and Elders extremely fast. In fact, you even have potential to solo them at full build, so keep that in mind for those rare occasions. Stay close to your team at all times against anything that can one-shot you. Again, your zone control is insane at this time and amplified compared to mid-game. Enemies will fear a single soldier auto at this point, so place it in areas they are most likely to walk and they're forced to walk if they want to get into a fight. Sieging is still your best option with your team. Azir's amazing wave clear will help stall out most games that are even or slightly behind, so don't ever give up on playing Azir and focus on defending your towers.
Shurima.
If this guide inspired you to play Azir or you just simply enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. I'm really focusing on trying to improve these guides as much as possible, and there's plenty more to come. So if you're interested in that, please hit that subscribe button. If you want a guide on a specific champ, let me know in the comments below and give me any feedback that you think I could improve on anything in this video. There's still a long way to go in terms of my editing quality, so all feedback is welcomed. I want to improve as much as possible, so any other information is welcomed. I'm Zoose, and I'll see you in the next video.